On Thursday evening, everybody seemed to be falling over themselves to be the first to tell you that Amanda Staveley is close to buying a 25% stake in West Ham United. The Times reported it. I think they started the story. It was followed up by Sky News. The BBC picked it up, Mail Online, and just about everybody has now picked up this story and run with it. Social media on Thursday kind of went into overdrive. And if you only read the headlines, you'd think that this deal is practically done. Now, normally, when you've got so many reputable outlets all saying more or less the same thing, you'd simply report it, give your verdict on it, and move on. But I decided to spend a little bit of time making some inquiries because something about this story just doesn't quite sit right with me. And from what I've been told, kind of paints a slightly different narrative to what's been reported. Now, look, before anybody starts accusing me of saying that this story is rubbish or completely made up, that's not what I'm saying. Far from it. I think there's substance to the story, absolutely. I think Amanda Staveley has genuine interest or had genuine interest in West Ham. It's not the first time we've heard about her showing an interest in the club. I believe exploratory conversations have taken place between Staveley and West Ham. But do I believe she's close to buying 25% of the football club? I'm not so sure, at least not based on what I understand. And once you start looking at all the moving parts, there are some very obvious contradictions that maybe some people have picked up on, but maybe not everybody's talking about. So rather than simply repeating the headlines, let's actually look into what we know. Also, what is it we don't really know? And why I think everybody should be treating this story with a healthy dose of open mindedness. Now, I'm going to break this down into 7 parts, but don't worry, I won't be talking at you for the next hour. Probably the video will last about 15 minutes at most. But before I do any of that, if you're new to this channel, or if you've watched the West Ham Voice before, a QR code has just appeared in the top corner there. Click on that if you enjoy the content. Become a subscriber of the channel. Costs nothing to subscribe. If you enjoy the content, why not become a subscriber? So let's look at part 1. And that's the contradiction that I see. So with the reports themselves, we've got to look at what's been said. You know, to be honest, they've all been grouped together. They're actually saying, even so, they're all saying slightly different things. Now, Mark Ziegler of the Times reported that Amanda Staveley's consortium is close to buying a 25% stake in West Ham. That's what most of the other channels have gone with, all the big social media channels, the media outlets, etc. It's a very definitive statement, close to buying. Now, Mark Kleinman of Sky News, however, has worded it rather differently. He reported that Amanda Staveley is plotting to buy part or all of the Gold family's 25% shares, but crucially added that there's no certainty a deal will happen. That last sentence is absolutely crucial because close to buying has been reported by the Times, and exploring a possible purchase with no certainty, as reported by Sky, are two very completely different stages of a deal. One suggests that the finish is in sight. The other suggests discussions are taking place and may actually come to nothing. And from what I understand, the Sky version is much closer to the reality than the Times version. Has Amanda Staveley shown interest? Absolutely. Have conversations taken place? I believe they have. Has she explored the possibility of a share purchase? Yeah, absolutely. Is she anywhere near to completing a purchase? I've been told absolutely not, and Sky seems to suggest that it's not close. In fact, the suggestion I've received is that it's nowhere near the finish line. Now, secondly, why does this not quite add up? Well, this is where the story becomes kind of interesting because both reports, initial reports by the Times and Sky, have identified exactly the same shares as being purchased the Gold family shares. Now, because we already know, or we were already led to believe, these shares, or most of these shares, have actually already been spoken for. Or so we're led to believe. Like I say, only recently, West Ham publicly confirmed that Daniel Kretinsky is purchasing 16% of the Gold family holdings. Now, that deal will take him from 27% to approximately 43% ownership of the club. It will make him the club's largest shareholder. We've all been led to believe that this is happening. It's in the pipeline. It's been reported. It's been acknowledged publicly. So now ask yourself a simple question. How can Amanda Staveley be close to buying the very same shares? Both things cannot be true simultaneously. Either Kretinsky is buying them or Staveley is. Can't be both. Now that's the first, I think that's a kind of major contradiction that we really need to get to the bottom of. Thirdly, let's look at the transfer window argument. It's another reason why things don't quite add up, and that's the whole timing of this statement that's come out. We're in the middle of a hugely important transfer window. West Ham have already sold significant players, and more are to go. Supporters are waiting for reinforcements, and nothing's happening. Daniel Kretinsky is expected to inject fresh investment into the club once his increased shareholding is completed. Now, imagine if you're Daniel Kretinsky, would you really start committing tens of millions of pounds into transfers if ownership of the club suddenly becomes uncertain again? Of course not. Any significant ownership negotiations is going to inevitably slow things down. Lawyers are going to be involved, due diligence, shareholder approvals, corporate restructuring. None of that happens overnight. If anything, it's going to delay footballing decisions, which does make me question whether a transaction of this size is really as advanced as some people are suggesting, and whether the timing of this really makes any sense. Now, some people are now suggesting that the delay in buying players is purely because of this, because the shares are being sold to Staveley, and that's why everything is held up. Now, that's also a possibility. That's also, that could be true, but I'm not so sure, to be honest with you. Now, fourthly, the Reuben Brothers twist. Let's introduce this twist because it's quite significant. It's reported that Staveley isn't acting alone. She's fronting a consortium, and that consortium is believed to include the Reuben Brothers. Now, that's quite fascinating because only a few days ago, or about a week ago, another story emerged suggesting that the Reuben Brothers had interest in the London Stadium and its land that it sits on. Now, at the time, I asked a very simple question. Why would a property investor suddenly become interested in a football club? Well, maybe the football club isn't the ultimate objective. Maybe it's the route to something much bigger. If you're serious about eventually controlling the stadium, or more so the property that it sits on, the opportunities, the development opportunities around Stratford, owning a significant part, are immense. So in order to get your seat on the table, owning a significant part of West Ham United will give you that focus, will give you that ability. So suddenly, these two stories don't quite look so separate anymore. I'm not saying that's definitely what's happening, but it's certainly a possibility that's worth considering. Now, fifth, the number of shares and the Bowen factor. Perhaps everyone is talking about maybe the wrong percentage. Remember, once Kretinsky completes, or if he now completes, the 16% purchase from the Gold family, that will only leave the Gold family with 9% share stake in West Ham. Now, could it be that the remaining holding eventually becomes available? Absolutely. Could Amanda Staveley be interested in just those 9% shares? Quite possible. That scenario actually makes considerably more sense than competing with Kretinsky for the entire 25%. Now, we know that Kretinsky, that the shareholders have first option to buy any shares that are available. Could it be that Kretinsky has made one offer and Staveley has made a higher one? That's also very possible. Now, it's quite, it's quite possible that Kretinsky has decided against purchasing the gold shares in order to allow Staveley and her consortium to buy all the gold family shares. Again, another possibility. But then another question appears. When did Amanda Staveley first make the approach? Was it before Kretinsky's agreement with the gold family? Or was it after? Because this timing also matters. Now, it's been suggested that she made her first approach at the end of last season. Now, this would have been before Kretinsky publicly stated that he was going to buy 16% of the gold family shares. And it was also before Kretinsky had Jared Bowen fly over to Prague to sell him his vision of West Ham United, which made Bowen commit to the club. Now, if Kretinsky had told Bowen that he was thinking of allowing another potential owner into the club, that could have created doubt in Bowen's mind and may not have made him commit to West Ham. So the timing of all this doesn't add up. If Kretinsky went as far as flying Jared Bowen over to Prague, which was only a few weeks ago, after the end of the season, of course, he would have had to tell him that Amanda Staveley, that deal might have been in the pipeline. I suspect that there was no deal in the pipeline and that Kretinsky had given Bowen his word that it is him driving the change at the club and not another consortium coming in. You tell me what you think there. 6, the Kretinsky question. If Staveley's interest arrived before the deal for Kretinsky to buy the gold shares, then it raises another intriguing possibility. Has her approach delayed Kretinsky's purchase? There's another layer to this. We've heard for some time, or let me rephrase, social media has been telling us that Daniel Kretinsky is desperate not to become the major shareholder at West Ham. One of the reasons often suggested is because of his ownership at Sparta Prague. Becoming the dominant owner at West Ham potentially creates complications in the future, but that's only if both clubs miraculously end up playing in the same European competition, which is really highly unlikely for the foreseeable future. Let's also remember the gold family shares have effectively been available for 3 years. If Kretinsky desperately wanted them, then why wait? What's changed? Many believed it was David Sullivan stepping back from operational matters following everything that's happened to him personally and resigning from the board, which has made Kretinsky make a move. Suddenly there's a need for stability. Suddenly Kretinsky's agreed to increase his holding, reluctantly so. But now another interested party appears. Does that alter his thinking? Could he actually prefer someone like Amanda Staveley and her consortium to acquire those shares? It's impossible to rule that out. Now, 7, preemption rights. Before shares are sold externally, I've kind of touched on it already, existing shareholders are normally offered first refusal. Now, we know David Sullivan has shown no interest in increasing his stake. His matters are looking elsewhere at this moment, or his attention span is looking elsewhere at this moment in time. Kretinsky seems to have demonstrated that he will increase his shares, so any outside buyer has to navigate that process. And again, that's hardly the sign of a deal that's about to be completed straight away. These things take time. They take an awful lot of time. So where do I stand on this? I don't think the story's false. Far from it. I believe Staveley is interested. I believe discussions have taken place. I believe a consortium does exist. I believe even the Reuben Brothers' involvement is entirely plausible. But I also think the phrase that we'll go back to right at the start of the show, close to buying, is kind of getting well ahead of itself. There's a huge difference between expressing an interest and signing contracts. And at this very moment, I think too many people are treating those two things as if they're identical. And we all know that they're not. Now, this could become one of the biggest ownership stories West Ham has seen in years. Maybe Amanda Staveley eventually does buy into this football club. Maybe she doesn't. Maybe Daniel Kretinsky will complete his purchase exactly as planned. Maybe the emergence of another bidder changes everything. Right now, there are simply too many questions unanswered. There are contradictions in the stories that we're hearing, too many moving parts. And that's why I'm not going to sit here today and tell you that this deal is going to be done, because I'm not so sure it will be. But if it does, it's not going to be happening overnight. It's going to take a hell of a long time to complete. What I do believe is something could be happening, or certainly has happened. Whether that's Amanda Staveley exploring an opportunity, whether it's the Reuben Brothers looking beyond the football club towards the stadium and the land, or whether this is simply an early stage conversation that has kind of grown legs once it's reached the national media, I guess only time will tell. For now, I'd simply urge a little caution. Let's separate the confirmed facts from the speculation and keep an open mind. And as always, as more information comes in, I'll certainly keep you informed. What do you think? Would you like her to take over? Do you believe the story that it's happening? Or do you think maybe the story's been blown out of all proportion? Thank you for listening. Thank you for watching. Do leave your comments. Do become a subscriber if you haven't already done so. Hit the like button, hit the bell notification, hit the hype button, which promotes this video on YouTube, and I'll see you all again soon.